Okay, we'll go ahead and get started. So welcome parents. We are so excited that you were able to join us this morning. My name is Kia Bigues. I'm the head of the department for the high school counseling department. And today, myself and my team, we will be presenting this grade 8 transition to high school. So first of all, congratulations to you as parents. Congratulations to your students. They have completed middle school and on their way to the next step. So you definitely deserve a pat on the back because the middle school years are the awkward fun years. But we are here to guide them through high school, and hopefully this presentation will give you a little more information about that transition. So before we get started in the actual presentation, we wanted to introduce you to our team. As I said, my name is Kia Bigues. I am the department chair. Joining me on this transition presentation are Mr. Matthew Beck, Miss Amanda Harvey, Miss Mercy Jesudis, and Miss Lori Thompson. Mr. Patrick Tassoni is helping with our AP testing, so he won't be able to join us, but you will be meeting him further next year. And then we also have two lovely admin assistants, Ms. Keo and Ms. Abuzet. We are located in the counseling office, which is on the ground floor in the high school building, right across from the high school office. Okay, so here are some topics that will be covered in this presentation. The high school counseling program at ASD, how the transition from middle school and high school will look, going from what you're used to in middle school because they've been there for 3 years. And regardless if they've been in middle school at ASD the whole time or came from another school, middle school and high school, no matter where you're coming from, it's always going to be the same, that kind of transition from going from the middle school years to the high school years. And then most importantly, how can you as parents support your student, support the counselors, and how can we work collaboratively to ensure that your son or daughter is very successful? Okay, we still follow the same mission and core values that ASD presents: every student, future ready. Our mission: we challenge and inspire each student to achieve their dreams and to become a passionate learner prepared to adapt and contribute in a rapidly changing world. I want to focus really on each student. So one of the great things about having a team of 6 is that we do have the opportunity to focus on each student. So we hope that when your students join us in grade 9, that you will feel that this team is focusing on your individual students. We try our best to ensure that the students are incorporating the core values into their daily life, and we help to facilitate that as well and discuss that with them in some of the conversations we have: compassion, excellence, integrity, respect, responsibility. These are all things that are great for each ASD student to remember and to try to implement in their daily life. I'll now turn it over to my colleague who will continue with the presentation.
Hello, I'm Lori Thompson, and I'm going to talk about what is high school counseling at ASD. We are a comprehensive counseling model, which means we cover a little bit of everything. So you can see the diagram right there. We've got a social, emotional, academic, and college and career. So the academic section is natural with any school. We are looking at supporting the students, helping them advise about courses that they should take throughout the high school, that it's a progressive program that will cover both the base that they need. Can I go back to that first slide? Thank you. And so we're going to help guide your child, your high schooler, from 9th all the way through 12th grade when they graduate. We are covering all the grade levels also. And so the academic part is just helping them be successful academically. The social emotional part is making sure that they have the social and personal growth to transition from that middle school through on to high school, which will then prepare them as a young adult for university and college. And so that social emotional part is a very big part throughout high school. It's that teenage year time that can be challenging for parents and for themselves, just being uncertain of things. And we're going to help them through that process. And then the college and career aspect is making sure that they are thinking ahead and planning and finding out where are their passions, where are their interests, and help guide them towards career aspirations, as well as let's start researching some colleges and universities, looking at their future. Are they going to go right into university, or are they going to take a gap year? That's not uncommon anymore, and or work opportunities. These kinds of experiences are really important. So basically, we're helping your child transition between the middle school and high school, and we're going to help them focus towards their future. Next screen, please. Okay, at the counseling office, there's our picture of all of us being very COVID aware and wearing our masks out in the courtyard just outside of our office area, which is actually the building on to the left of that photo is the middle school. On that side is the counseling office over there and high school office. So we're just opposite of that in the courtyard. And for our counseling caseload, each counselor has about 130 students, and we will work with students grades 9 through 12. So it's not by grade level. It is all the way through. Once they come with us at 9th grade, they will stay with us until they graduate. So we get to know them very, very well. And the students are broken into advisory or house teams. We have assigned house advisories. And so those students that are under our caseload will all be in the same advisory in which we will meet. And that's where we'll do different seminars and trainings and information with them. And lastly, the siblings. We try our best to place all the students with the same family, with the same counselor. We find that consistency helps so that we get to know the family, and the children are similar, and sometimes they're very different from each other. And that's really helpful for us to help guide them. And it just helps support the consistency for the family and for the academic program, which we're helping them with. Okay, next slide, please. All right, the counseling program is comprehensive, but it's also developmental. We cover a curriculum base. And so at grade 9, we're covering the orientation and acclimation to the high school from the middle school. And we will talk to them about self-identity and help them with their personality developments and skill learning and relationship skills and just adaptation. Homework is at a different level at high school compared to middle school. Some find it easier, some find it harder. And we'll try to meet the needs of each child through the 9th grade. They have specific courses that are the same, like English 9. Those are only with English grade 9 students, and same with their PE courses. The other courses that they will be in, they'll be mix on ability throughout high school. At grade 10, we cover the career exploration, helping them be acquainted to the CALFO program, which they will end up doing a survey in, and focusing a little bit more about thinking ahead towards their future. At 11th grade, we do the college university exploration phase, making sure they have the right courses, because that end 11th grade is going to be the transcript that goes on to universities with their applications. So it's really starting to focus on, okay, we have to be prepared for college applications the following year. So helping them with starting their essay and their whole thought process for college. And of course, 12th grade, it is the actual, let's finish those essays, let's get those applications in, let's look at those deadlines. And then now during the second semester, at this point, we're starting to talk to our seniors about looking ahead. Many of them are getting their university acceptances, placements, and decisions. A few are still waiting, and that's many times at this point due to COVID that delayed some of those admissions. But we're trying to have them think ahead towards transitioning from high school into college and university. So we will help your child all the way through the process. Thank you. Next.
Okay, I'll pick it up from here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Matt Beck. If you attended the course selection presentation, you would not have seen me then, but it's been a pleasure working with your sons and daughters through that process, and then shifting into this transition phase. And this portion of the presentation is going to be more focused on the student experience, what they can expect in terms of a transition, what you can expect as parents, and then how you can support them. But before moving on, I think it's important to note that these are all things in this presentation that you can start to think about, start to plan for. But the most important part now is for your students to finish grade 8 strong. And so they're still high school students. Middle school students. They still need to finish strong. And from our experiences, the stronger you finish your grade 8 year, the better your grade 9 year is going to be to start. It's not a switch that flips on when you get to high school. It's really about implementing some strategies now, and then hopefully beginning high school as strong as possible. And so we feel as though we have some knowledge and experience about the transition from grade 8 to 9, what students can expect. But there's no better population to hear from, we feel, than the grade 9 students themselves. And so what we did was we put together a short video of some current grade 9 students answering some basic questions about their experience transitioning from middle to high. So we'll show you that short video now. The sound is a little low, so you may want to turn up your volume on your computer. And then from there, we'll get into some similarities and some differences. What were the biggest differences between middle school and high school for you?
In high school, your friend groups change more because you're also meeting people from different grades as well as your own.
We were used to being just in the grade 8 community. Like, we wouldn't go and speak with like 7th and 6th graders. However, in high school, it's a much more collaborative experience. And like, for example, now I'm in 9th grade. However, I have friends in 10th, 11th, 12th grade that that can help me, that can guide me, that just give me advice. So I feel like in 9th grade, it's a much more open experience in terms of grade levels.
Personally, the biggest difference for me, it was the opportunity of choice, in the sense that in middle school, you're only allowed to take certain classes, and you don't really get much of a choice of what classes you want to take, besides the electives where you get to pick between tech, drama, and art. However, in high school, like even for some of the core classes, like in math and social studies, you get to choose whatever you want.
What has been the most challenging aspect for your transition?
Asking your teachers for help, because in high school, you're the one who has to come to a teacher instead of the opposite way. You have to take responsibility for what you need to work on and what you need to ask for help on.
Personally, the best thing for me is the fact that you can choose so many different classes. Personally, I'm more of a math and science person. I know that others like history or language arts or whatever. In middle school, like I said before, you really can only go through certain pathways, and they hold your hand a lot. But in high school, you get all these different opportunities for all these different classes that you want to take, and I think it's really good for you because you get to choose what you want to do. You don't just go along with what the curriculum tells you to do.
I think the best part about being in high school is that you get a lot more freedom and independence. With that comes challenges, though, because you have to learn to adapt and do things yourself. And you have to learn independence, but once you do learn it, the freedom is really good and you can be more creative.
What advice would you give to your grade 8 self?
Not to worry as much because you have teachers and friends to support you along the way.
The advice I give to my grade 8 self is to cement in study habits. When I was in grade 8, I wasn't a great student. Oftentimes I wouldn't study or I'd do the homework in the morning the day it was assigned. In high school, you can't really do that because the classes, they give more homework and so it kind of stacks up on you if you do it. But if you're effective with your time, then it's not that much of a challenge.
So I feel like just the best piece of advice I can give for everyone coming in 8th grade is just to understand that when you go into high school, it will be the days that will build your future, and you just need to take it seriously and try to just capitalize on the moment and just dominate high school. Yeah.
I would, the advice I would give to my 8th grade self would be to not procrastinate, to get my work done so I can live a more balanced life and be happy and just get it out of the way as much as I don't want to do it. And also to just relax because it's not that scary once you get into it and just go with the flow.
Okay. Well, there's no better group to hear from than, like I said, the experts. And there were, I don't know if you've heard, and apologies for the sound, and this is going to be recorded, so you can go back and listen to it again if you'd like. But there were some themes that presented themselves throughout. Sorry, Ms. Bigues, if you could just go back to.
Sorry, I'm trying to. Give me a second here.
That's okay, similarities. But anyway, there were some themes that presented themselves that we know exist, like time management, self-advocacy, taking high school seriously, of course. All of these things that we know exist, but the reason we know they exist is because we have these conversations with grade 9 students. And really thinking about, what could you do in grade 8 now? And it's starting to think about and examine your work habits, your study habits, your time management is what you're doing for you now working. And so again, that's just questions that you can ask as parents in examining student work ethic. A lot of focus is given to the differences that exist between middle and high school, but actually there are a lot of similarities as well, and we want to make sure that those are highlighted. When I went to high school, when the counselors went to high school, very often we got on a different bus and we transitioned across town to a new building, and those two buildings, middle and high school, did not have anything to do with one another. They didn't talk. That's not the case here at ASD. We're one school, and I think we need to keep that in mind. And it's literally like the picture shows, all the buildings are connected. All the teachers share the same values and mission. The community is cloaked in these same principles. So we have to keep that in mind. Because we're all in this together, there's a continuum of curriculum. And so while it seems like you're going to high school, it's this huge step, and it is, but it is the next step in the curriculum. Just like grade 7 to 8, grade 8 to 9 is just the next step. So it does build, it is a little bit more rigorous, but it is developmentally the next step. Students share the same facilities. And so you're not in a scenario where you have to learn where the cafeteria is or where the gym is or the library. It's all the same, or the nurse's office. And so that we see alleviates a little bit of the stress associated with this transition. The rotation schedule is very similar. And so it's not going to be something, again, students have to relearn. At the beginning of the year, there's always that sort of transition refresher that's necessary. But all in all, it's very, very similar. Just like in middle school, each student has their own counselor. That counselor stays with the student for the duration of their middle school experience and then the high school experience. And so whichever counselor your student is or child is assigned to, that relationship will continue for the duration of high school. The same is true for advisory. In middle school, advisory is a substantial component. Same thing in high school. In the high school advisory, there's that small group feel that is created within a bigger school. And again, the advisory teacher stays with that student group for the duration of high school. So to continue with the connectedness to the school. So really important to focus in on the similarities. And then now we'll make a shift to some of the differences that you and your child can anticipate. And I'll pass it over to Miss J.
Good morning, this is Ms. Jessitis. Good morning, this is Ms. Jessitis. I will be speaking to the differences that your students will experience when they enter high school. And really, if anything, this should get them excited and in anticipation of the differences that will be part of their new experience starting August. They are not meant to be daunting at all. And an important piece that Mr. Beck highlighted was just the continuum of what we have between middle school and high school. So if your child bears that in mind, and if you bear that in mind, in many ways than not, they are actually more prepared for high school than they might realize right now. I'm going to go through some general differences first. And, one of the things that our students will see right away and pick up on is that there's just a lot more independence in the high school. There's a lot less monitoring, and they will notice that pretty quickly. But that doesn't mean that there are no rules in the high school. There's just a lot more room for them to make choices. And our hope is that they are making smart choices for themselves. I'll notice that, for instance, our students walk around with their backpacks. We don't police their devices as much. They're expected to put it away in class during instruction, and they should, and they will, because they'll notice everyone else doing the same as well. Your child will have more interactions with students across grade levels. They won't be confined to a wing or a hall or a floor with just same age peers. They'll have classes with older students. When they're older, they'll have classes with younger students. And this is just the nature of high school, a lot more independence. So some of your kids might be taking a study block next year, which is a full period that is an independent work time to focus on whatever it is your child needs to do in that time, whether it's catching up with work or preparing for something that's due the next week, or even if a teacher is free in the same block and meeting with the teacher, or meeting up with another classmate who has the same study block to prepare for something in a specific course. So they have a lot of flexibility in how they use their free time as well when they are in high school. Ms. Bigas, could you move on to the next slide, please? There are some differences in our extracurricular opportunities. One, the students might notice there's just a lot more extracurricular opportunities, ranging from student-led organizations to more athletic opportunities, specific clubs like MUN and Forensics and Debate, which are part of, which are competitive, and our sports are also competitive. So students come into high school and are now faced with the decision-making of what are they going to get involved in. And it's really important to bear in mind that the purpose of these opportunities are purely for self-exploration. There's no maximum required, there's no minimum required. We want students to find what makes them tick, what makes them excited to come to school, where do they want to grow, what areas do they want to grow in outside of the classroom, and they may choose from the range of opportunities they have. There is no right activity or wrong activity, and they may choose from any of these based on their personal interests. As I mentioned earlier, they're largely for self-exploration. And the onus is really on the student to research the opportunities, to pay attention to the announcements that go out through the bulletin or ASD Connect, which is the new Go page, and go show up to the events or the meetings or the tryouts and express their interest to be part of it. So one of the things that we want to emphasize when looking at all of these opportunities is encourage your child to push themselves out of their comfort zone, but also to just focus on really where are their interests. A student might end up going to a meeting with a friend because their friend's present there with them, but if they're not interested in what that particular student organization focuses on, they're really not going to be very engaged or interested in any of the activities that they plan. So we encourage students to make an independent decision. Where are your interests? Pursue your interests based on that. And maybe you'll make new friends in certain organizations that you have not been part of before, even if you don't go with someone you already know. So we encourage students to stay focused on personal interests and your own personal growth when picking activities. They will notice that our high school activities can be more time consuming. And I guess if you could move on to the next slide. So our high school activities can be more time consuming. Another aspect of that decision making on what to get involved in and how many to get involved in should really be based on your child's schedule and commitment both in and outside of school. So our students often ask, as our high school courses more difficult than middle school courses? And I want to highlight what Mr. Beck mentioned earlier about the continuum of the curriculum. Our courses are a continuum in content and skills. They are not, there's no dramatic jump in the complexity of the content. But as the student interviews highlighted, the expectations are different. There is a lot more responsibility placed on the student. There are fewer reminders and more opportunity for self-advocacy. So that's a skill that we really encourage our 9th graders to work on next year when they're in high school. It's building those relationships with teachers and working closely with them when they need support in a class. There is a lot more independence, and the student, and the onus is on the student to take the initiative to approach their teachers. And we as counselors will support them in that. If this is the first time that they are doing that, we'll support them and to have conversations with them on strategies, so how to approach teachers. If we need to do a short role play in our office to help them come up, be more comfortable with that conversation, we'll coach them through it. But that's something we really want to encourage your child to do, is start building those relationships with their classroom teachers. From a records perspective, our 9th graders do feel like there is more pressure because now this is an official record. The grades go on a transcript. It's calculated to a grade point average. This is something that goes to universities. And yes, while all that is true and part of the high school structure, the difficulty in courses is not a drastic jump. And in many ways, your child is already prepared. I want to highlight again what Mr. Beck mentioned earlier. One of the things that I have my 9th graders do in my first few conversations with them is have them identify what are the assets and strengths you're already coming to high school with. What did you do in middle school that made you successful in middle school? Because don't stop doing that. And that's a great conversation to have with your child as well. If they're feeling anxious about what will high school courses be like, sit down with them and do an inventory of what did you do well in middle school? Let's focus on the strengths and build on the strengths so that you can continue to work on those. And then we'll work on setting more goals for high school when they get to high school. So in other words, as Mr. Beck mentioned, finishing strong in middle school is really important. When they finish strong in middle school, they come to high school with more confidence and ready to face whatever challenges high school throws at them, and will grow naturally in those challenges. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Harvey.
Hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Amanda Harvey. So I'm going to be talking about study habits and how you can support your children going forward. So if your son or daughter has this definition of a study habit, multitasking, working, watching TV, texting, doing a bit of Instagramming, that might be worth a conversation at this point. Next slide. However, high school is about academic work. There's no getting around it. But actually, it's about relationships as well. And high school is a transition for people developing from childhood to adulthood. It is a process rather than a destination. And the role of the high school, as we've talked about, in terms of our mission, is to prepare students for what comes next, whatever that might be, whether it's college, work, or even national service. Now, the issue here, unfortunately, is that we're dealing with a teenage brain. Now, you may have had some insights into this as parents with tweens. It doesn't stop. It's the teenage brain that turns the high school experience into a roller coaster of emotion for students and for parents at home as well, unfortunately. A bit of neuroscience. According to the Harvard Medical School, the adolescent brain is only 80% matured. So 80%, that might sound reassuring to you as parents. However, the difficulty is that the less developed 20% will make you pull your hair out, because the large part of the final fifth of development of the brain, of the prefrontal cortex, is executive cognitive functioning. You may have seen this in middle school, but it means that teenagers have difficulty with planning, organisation, impulse control, and weighing up consequences of their actions and decisions. Throw in hormones, and hey presto, you have a risk-taking, peer-pressured animal that seeks novelty, thrills, and romance. So, high school is a roller coaster, and there are pressure points where students are developing their sense of identity, their social preference, they're developing independence and testing boundaries at home. So it does create tensions at home with parents. We would advise that you continue to provide and model healthy interactions with your child, provide love, support and advice, even if you often feel it goes unlistened to. It's also worth remembering that at this age, this adolescent age, the part of the brain associated with empathy and guilt is also underdeveloped. So they may not understand that the things that they say are hurtful because their brains are a work in progress. And along with the many physical changes and growing that happens in grade 9 and between grade 9 and grade 12, that's what makes the high school experience both a joy and a challenge. So next slide, please, Kia. So how can you help support your child through high school? I mean, as I think we've all said, there are some fundamental skills that they've already started to develop in middle school. I think a big key to success in high school is relationships, students developing their own relationships with teachers, with their own counsellor, being a good self-advocate. So deciding what it is they need and speaking up for themselves. So as a parent, it's very difficult, but you do have to let your child take the lead and speak up for themselves. You can help them establish study and work habits, time management. But as I said, their teenage brain is going to find this kind of executive functioning quite difficult. So, patience, support at home with boundaries for timelines of, this time is work time, this time is leisure time. This really helps, particularly establishing routines about work and bedtime as well, making sure that they're getting 8 to 9 hours of sleep a night. We've touched on this with discussions of activities as well as academic work, but there needs to be balance in everything. Making sure that if they're doing extracurricular activities, that doesn't necessarily impinge on their academic work, but then only focusing on your academic work is not good for personal growth. So it's about finding a balance between having these two things so they're complementary to a student's experience of high school and their own personal growth. And then the phone talk. That's really important. Again, establishing boundaries and routines about how they use their phone, if they're working. So next slide, please. All that is very scary, but, I hope you will remember that the high school counsellors are part of the team working with you and your son and daughter, and we are here to support both you as parents and students as they go through the process of high school, and really preparing them for life after high school. So, next slide. Thank you very much for attending. If you have any further questions, feel free to write them in the chat now in the question and answer section, and we can address them in the final few minutes of the presentation. We'll just wait a few seconds in case anyone's got any questions or any comments to add. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any questions. I hope that means that we've been thorough. You know, as a high school team, we are very much looking forward to working with you and your children. Someone's asked a question, do we have regular scheduled meetings with the students? Yes, we do. We will, our calendar means that our focus on grades does change during the year, but we do have regular checking meetings with students. We will certainly have those with grade 9 students as they come into the high school. So regular scheduled meetings, yes, but we also have open calendars. So all of us have a You Can Book Me calendar. So students can also, again, as a self-advocacy skill, you know, if they're having an issue or they need some help and support from their counsellor, they can make an appointment to see their counsellor at any point. So we have an absolutely open door policy, and we are available 100% of time. So we are 100% contact time. Would anybody else, any other counsellor like to chip in there about regular meetings?
I would like to add, if I may please, that not only do we go into the classroom advisories, but we actually invite students. We have an open door policy, and or on the website by our photos, there is a You Can Book Me. And so students can meet with us at any point. We do not want them meeting with us during a class. However, during break, before school, advisory break times, certainly we welcome students to come meet with us individually. We welcome parents to meet with us. There's communication by email, there's Google Hangouts. There's many ways for us to work with your child in your individually or in small groups.
I see another question. Have you had this talk with the students? Not yet. That's part of our transition program. In the past, we used to do the course selection, student-led tours around the high school, and then a panel and a Q&A for students and a counselor discussion. We got rid of the tour because the students said, well, these are the same facilities we use anyway, right? We don't need to see the library. We don't need to see the cafeteria. Been there, done that. But in terms of an opportunity to speak with us counselors, that is part of our transition program. And then our hope is to actually get a panel of grade 9 students, similar to the video that you saw, to be able to answer questions. So yes, that is part of it. The timing is also important though, because again, the fact that they are in grade 8 now is what's most important. And so we don't want to start their transition too early. You know, it's important for you as parents to start thinking about these things, to start recognizing some of the areas for growth potentially now. But really, a lot of the things that we mentioned here, the expectation is not that they start grade 9 as excellent self-advocates, having perfect time management. I mean, our grade 9 teachers know how to work with students, and that's a learning process. As Ms. Harvey mentioned, it's a journey. And so we don't want to start the process too early. We really want to respect their teachers and their time now and have them finish the year strong. But to answer the question, yes, towards the end of the year, we are going to have this discussion with them.
There is a question, are there any individual consultations planned with the student regarding the selection of the 9th grade subjects? So even though we haven't done this particular talk with the 8th graders, we have been in their advisories. We were there every day of a week, so they got to see us more than once. And then we also met with them individually during their PE classes. And as Ms. Thompson and Ms. Harvey said, we gave them the option of the You Can Book Me. So some of them did actually schedule appointments to discuss their course selections individually. So we've always opened that up. I just want to quickly share my screen since to show you what we're talking about. When you're on the Connect page and you click on, sorry, it's going kind of slow, on high school here. If you look here at high school counseling, Apologies, my internet's running kind of slow here. So here are our pictures, and here is where you can click on make an appointment, and you will be able to go directly to that You Can Book Me site. So I just wanted to make sure everybody saw that. Some of you may be visual like myself, so you're hearing it, but it's better to see it. The other question was, are you the college counselors as well, or is that a separate department? We are comprehensive, so that means we do everything. We're the college counselors, we're social, personal, emotional, we're academic. So that counselor for your student, as long as the counselor is at ASD and the student is at ASD, they will be together until they graduate, and they will help them with every aspect. So that is college and everything else. Some of the students are getting very anxious about high school now. Can this be addressed with them this year, please? I think Mr. Beck answered that already, that we are, but I'll let you continue with that, Mr. Beck.
Well, that's first of all, that's a very normal feeling, and I don't want to discard the feelings, because anxiety it can be a good thing, it can be not so healthy. And so one of the conversations that we're going to have with the students towards the end of the year is exactly what we talked about now, what you can be doing, what are some action steps that students can be taking to maybe ease some of that anxiety, and who are the supports around if there are additional questions, or if you feel like the anxiety is unhealthy. So certainly the current counselor, their grade 8 counselor, can be a support. Their grade 8 teachers are an excellent resource, and of course us counselors. And Ms. Begess mentioned that there's the You Can Book Me site. We love hearing from parents, but I get super excited when a student reaches out to me and advocates and says, Mr. Beck, I have a question about this particular course, or can we meet? I think that's fantastic. And I've met with grade 8 students already, even after course selection. They want to talk about potential clubs and organizations and things like that. So, that usually sitting in front of a counselor or somebody in the high school, it alleviates the anxiety, because right now it's just a vacuum and they're thinking the worst potentially. So I would encourage that student to have a conversation with one of us so that we can sort of temper that down a little bit.
Also, to piggyback on that, I have heard from some of the 8th grade students that it's been very helpful just talking about their anxiety and their fears with their advisory teacher. They have been very supportive. And I know Ms. Knox, also the grade 8 counselor. So, definitely there's so many people out there to support them. And if your child is feeling a little anxious, show them that video that Mr. Beck so nicely put together of the 9th grade students with their own advice, because they were just in their shoes last year. So there's so many ways to help alleviate those fears, and just let them know that they have a team of people who are here to just support them and help them through it. I don't see any other questions. If you have any more, put them in the Q&A. If not, we will let you guys get about the rest of your day. Okay, well, we thank you so much for joining us. We are just so very excited about welcoming your students to high school. And if there's anything we can do, you let us know.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.